for those that think the Bulls should be Charlotte or Washington,
you don't need to get to 1, 2, or 3. You don't need to get there.
Well,
I don't know that the kid at Duke is going to be better in 4 years than somebody from Europe that we don't even know. Remember, Luka Doncic was not chosen 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
So we got to stop concentrating on that. That's not tanking is not the solution, because tanking doesn't get you what you need as a promise. Tanking doesn't get you the guarantee.
I agree. We agree.
Big picture Bulls in this little charge they're on. What should we be thinking about them? Like, should people be buying the Bulls?
This is okay. So I'm watching these games as well. Of the 10 games, of the 8 out of 10, I probably watched 6 of them, big chunks, and some of all of them. And I've been texting or calling up and just asking my friends who are, including my brother, who's been a season ticket holder for decades in the past. What do we think? Do we think that this threesome particularly, do they comprise like the 3rd, 4th, and 5th best players potentially on a team that's a real contender? In other words, a team that could get to a conference final and play in a conference final. Are they that good? But we don't know what to think. We're really happy about it. We're thrilled about it. Josh Giddey, we knew had some talent. And that's why when the Bulls got him, I was like, okay, Josh Giddey's not going to stick in Oklahoma City necessarily. They're not going to pay him. They got so much talent. It's a log jam.
Yeah.
This is a good move for us, I guess. We were hoping maybe to, get some more in addition. But I'm like, okay, I'm good with this with Josh Giddey. But, I mean, Kobe White, a late bloomer, great. I had him runner-up last year, most improved player. But then to have a rookie, and we've made some mistakes in drafting. I look and I see Patrick Williams, and sometimes I just go crazy. Him coming off the bench is fine, and being a defensive stalwart is fine, and doing that at $90 million is not fine. But nonetheless, we're going to stress the positive here. I don't know. I want to know, can these be the 3rd, 4th? Because there's not a 1 on the team. There's not a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. There's not a Joker. There's not that kind of player on this team. But can you get that kind of player to go with these 3 and keep them? I don't know. And they got to keep playing. I want to see what these last 10, 12 games bring. What happens with the training camp? Does anybody have more upside? So there's a lot to ask here. I'm not ready to answer any of it because we've tried to answer these things before and gotten fooled, as you guys know. I'm not willing to answer, but I'm willing to be encouraged as I ask the question.
Michael, I was talking to Carm about this earlier in the show, and when I told him, I said, we've seen a bunch of try-hard Bulls teams for a long time. Even Derek and the Thibodeau's teams, they tried hard, but the ceiling to their success was limited because LeBron was in the way. So when I look at this team the same way, when I see Kobe White and Buzelis and Vucevic and Josh Giddey, I'm happy that the team is turning things around. But I think that we all know how the movie ends. It's a nice run, but you're just not in the same stratosphere as Cleveland or some of the upper echelon in the league. So I like what we're seeing now as is, because it's a good story. Billy's a really good coach, but we know what this is.
Okay, so what do you do with those 3? Do you keep those 3 guys together? Look, the any NBA success right now, if you're not in South Florida or South Carolina or Southern California, drafting and development.
Right.
You got to draft.
Yes.
You got to hit it. You got to take Halliburton instead of Patrick Williams. That's what. Go straight to Giannis or SGA. And these people, they're available. They're available. Every draft now has people you can build a championship contender around. You don't have to get the first player in the draft. Yes, it's nice if you get the first player. And by the way, so what would you do with these 3 guys, even if the Bulls won and they're not scheduled to win a lottery this year? But if you won the lottery and you got the kid from Duke, do you pair him? What do you do? Can you acquire a guy who's a veteran number 2? And then do you keep those 3 players together? I'm not talking about contending this year. That's a fool's conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about going forward with the personnel and some of the bench pieces the Bulls have now. Do you keep those guys? 3, again, no higher than 3, 4, 5, and lower, your bench. you keep them together and really try to find a 1 and a 2 to be a real contender, because that's what you got to have. Well, we are talking about those teams in the past, and the Derrick Rose teams were better than that, because Derrick Rose was a 1.
Yeah.
He got hurt. We saw that. He's MVP. But these teams don't have that player yet. What do you do in the meantime?
The most interesting part about what you just said there is paying them, or at least paying Giddey. That's the one now that you have to think about, and that's what worries me. Like, are we going to fall for a 40-game sample, which has been great, but he wants $30 or $35 million a year for Josh Giddey? Really?
Well, 30, 35, you better hope. Listen, if his team is going to sell for 30, 35, I'm going to say yes. Remember what started getting. He's a third guy. He's like one of the 3 highest paid players in the league. They can't make the play in.
I know.
So 30, 35, we're talking about guys on this next deal who are going to be getting 60, 65, and 70 on the back end.
My God.
Okay, so 30, 35 is a bargain. Yeah, 30, 35, sign me up for that.
Oh.
Now, what are you going to pay? What are you going to wind up paying in aggregate? Kobe White, Bucelis, we don't have to worry about, and Josh Giddey. And then but you can do that if you can draft, or if you get lucky, not just lucky in the lottery, you got to get lucky in the drafting. There's a difference. The Bulls chose Patrick Williams, what, 4th? Was he 4th or 6th?
4th.
Yeah, 4th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not.
Yeah.
You can't have a guy 4th that makes no impact.
Right.
Who people don't even know is on your team. Can't have that. So you got to get lucky not only in the lottery but in the drafting, and that's where the Bulls, unless Bucelis could be that guy. The Bulls did that for a long time. They got lucky in both the lottery, Derrick Rose, and in the drafting. The Bulls chose people late in the rounds who were Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Jimmy Butler what was Jimmy Butler, 28?
I think it was the last. I thought it was 30. I thought it was the last pick of the first
30th.
round.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Bulls did a great job for a long time in those places. Not so much for a couple of years, which really hurt them. And that's what we're talking about. But do you pay the freight to keep those 3 guys we're talking about? Do you keep them together as a chunk of your roster? Because look, if you've been lucky in this lottery, maybe you have something not next year but the year after, and that would be short-circuiting the process if the Bulls could be competitive like that in 2 years.
Michael, what's happened with this team is, and I knew this when the season started, I said to Cap in the morning, I said, this team is going to be too proud to tank because there's too much good shooting on it. This is when Levine was here. I said, this team is not going to be a non-playoff team because if the Bulls fan think that they should tank, it's not going to happen because there's too many shots on this team. You take DeRozan and you take Levine off the team, and look what's happened. You have someone that's budding as a star in Kobe White, the way he's shooting the basketball. You have Bucelis, who's got a chip on his shoulder because he feels like he should have been the first pick of the draft, and you got and you still got some pieces. So I when you talk about the lottery, the Bulls can't get there because it's just too much pride. For those that think the Bulls should be Charlotte or Washington,
you don't need to get to 1, 2, or 3. You don't need to get there. Well, I don't know that the kid at Duke is going to be better in 4 years than somebody from Europe that we don't even know. Remember, Luka Doncic was not chosen 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah.
So we got to stop concentrating on that. That's not tanking is not the solution, because tanking doesn't get you what you need as a promise. Tanking doesn't get you the guarantee.
I agree. We agree.
Gets you the guarantee.
Yes, we agree. I'm just saying that when you talk about the lottery being in Brooklyn for the lottery, will the Bulls have a spot there because they're rising? They're more of the seventh. They're more of the 7th seed than the play-in at this point.
They are. They could now. Missing the lottery entirely doesn't necessarily help you.
No.
That's the killer.
Was Giannis a lottery pick?
Giannis was, I think, 15th, so
That's
I think
correct.
just on the outside, right?
Outside of it then, yeah. But listen, that's the dilemma. What you're describing accurately, that's the dilemma. I just think that I used to be in favor of tanking more because I was stuck. I was stuck on, we got to get 1, 2, or 3. No, you don't. You don't. Because the guys who have won championships and MVPs, okay, so, Joker and Giannis, I mean, what is that? How many? isn't that 5 MVPs and 2 championships?
Between the two of them, yeah, they've got 5.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm done with tanking, but I hear you. You don't want to be so far down that you don't have a chance at guys who at 6 and 7 and 8. Devin Booker.
Yes.
Devin Booker, even though he wasn't you could argue that Chris Paul was the most important player on those Suns teams. And by the way, the Suns had a guy that was chosen first on that team in the finals, and he ain't even there anymore.
He's not even there.
They got rid of him.
Well,
so once again, I'm not focused on the 1, 2, or 3 of it. I'm focused on do we have the scouting and the worldwide appreciation of a kid that can be brought in and developed and put in the lineup and look up in 2 years. And yes, if you can get somebody that's 7'4" and coming in like the Spurs did, and he's the number 1 player, okay, that's a no-brainer. But that's like one out of the last how many? 7, 8? Well, it's not. I don't know that it's tanking to try and get that chance. And then if you don't make it anyway, and the ping pong balls don't fall your way, what have you got?
It is more doable, maybe more than it's ever been, but it's still like that fine line you guys are talking about where, okay, it doesn't have to be 1, 2, or 3 or in the top 5, but you sure like, you look at Oklahoma City, like Chet was obviously a very high pick, but SGA was 11th, and they like the Clippers traded him. Jalen Williams was 12th.
Yeah.
Giannis was 15th. Kawhi was 15th.
Wow.
Joker was a second-round pick. So that's the real outlier, I think. But you're right. You still kind of want to be
another one. I forgot about him.
Yeah. Like you kind of want to be like somewhere in the back end of that lottery, you feel like. So that's the fine line.
What? You almost want to. I found myself last night saying to my son, well, maybe we make the plan, but you don't win. You don't win the game.
Right,
you don't advance.
Yes.
And then you're in the lottery.
Yes.
And maybe somebody, I'm saying this teasingly, maybe the lottery gods in New York decide, okay, it's Chicago's time again.
Yeah. The cold envelope.
I'm teasing.
Yeah.
Michael, does your son know about the multiple 300 games that you bowled at King Bowl? Your plaque's still up there, by the way.
Oh God! Listen, no, there's no 300 games, but you know what? He doesn't. This is my fault. I failed as a father. I loved when I was growing up on the South Side, going to King Bowl.
Yeah,
that was a thing. I was in leagues for years as a junior, and loved it so much. And it's not a thing in D.C., and I think if I was in Chicago, if I was in the Midwest, it'd be a much bigger thing. And he's gone bowling, but he doesn't do it. And so that's disappointing. And by the way, I haven't driven that block in years, and now you guys are going to make me do it. I presume something has long replaced King Bowl. Is that true, or is it still there?
Is King Bowl still
there? I don't
there?
think it's still there, but the plaques are still there on the corner.
They kept all the
plaques.
plaques.
They kept the plaques, though. The 300 games, the great games that Wilbon threw.
That's 300 games. I'm glad.
That is
Take
great.
a photo of those for me.